Overcoming a childhood marked by abuse, now he helps set the captives free, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Welcome to Freedom Alive. When Victor Marx graduated from high school, his lifestyle was filled with drugs, fights, and theft. But now, Victor has founded a ministry called All Things Possible and helps others experience true freedom. Victor focuses his attention on hunting predators and rescuing, restoring, and empowering women and children who have been held captive by traffickers and other abusers. I'm so thankful to again be joined by Matt Staver, our co-host from Liberty Counsel. And Matt, it's so encouraging when God takes people who have been treated horribly and uses them to help others.
Well, Victor's story is amazing because he'll share some of the incredible abuse that he had from very beginning of birth and how that impacted him and how he actually came on the other side of it and found healing. But then he also shares an amazing story on rescuing children that are in sex trafficking or those that are in sex trafficking. And it's different than what you might think. It's actually going into some terrorist organizations that are holding people captive. So they're literally putting their lives at risk. He is doing an incredible job counseling people who have gone through trauma, helping people to be rescued. And he also will share a little bit about his experience visiting some of the kibbutzim in Israel that Hamas entered and slaughtered so many innocent people.
Exactly. A remarkable story. We cannot wait to bring it to you at home, but our Freedom Alert is next.
Hawaii Good News Clubs file suit over equal access. Liberty Counsel filed a lawsuit on behalf of Child Evangelism Fellowship of Hawaii against the Hawaii State Department of Education and the superintendents of 4 locations. These school officials have violated the Constitution, state laws, and school policies by discriminating against the elementary school Good News Clubs while allowing other similar non-religious organizations. CEF Good News Clubs positively impact the lives of children and their families and once per week provide Christian teaching and fun activities to encourage learning, spiritual growth, and service to others, as well as social, emotional, character, and leadership development. Good News Clubs do not charge a fee and welcome children with written permission from parents. Please pray for this organization. Liberty Counsel represents CEF nationally and has never lost a case involving the Good News Clubs.
Up next, Matt's interview with Victor Marx.
I want to welcome Victor Marx, our special guest, to Freedom Alive. He is the founder of All Things Possible. Welcome to Freedom Alive, Victor.
Thank you, man. Good to be here.
Well, I want to talk about your story to give a little background. But before that, tell us about what All Things Possible Ministry does and why you founded it.
Well, thanks for having us. Well, we're celebrating 20 years this year of setting captives free. And I tell people the easiest way to remember is we set captives free physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And we started by reaching kids who were incarcerated here in the U.S. At one point, there was, over 200,000 kids that'd be incarcerated in some form or fashion any given night in the U.S. And we started going to these facilities. There were youth prisons, and trying to reach those who were really sadly extremely broken. And then it just grew. It grew by need and then invitation and then access and placement to where now we've been operating in multiple countries and been very effective in helping set people free physically, especially children from sex traffickers and abusers and even terrorist organizations.
How you have a personal story that really begins before the founding of the ministry. Take us back to your own personal story and how that ultimately really paved the way for what you're doing now.
It did, and thanks for asking, because that puts context to everything that I do. As a kid, like most, coming from a broken home, my father didn't claim me as his child. And when he got my mother pregnant, he actually shoved rosary beads down her throat and put a pistol to her head. That was the night I was conceived. He you know, what sin and rebellion to God does to men, it opens them up for evil. And he ended up never being there for me as a kid. My mother would marry 6 times. I went to 14 schools, 17 different houses. And unfortunately, the first man she married after my biological dad, he was a pedophile. And he was a very sick individual. So I suffered at his hands from ages around 3 to 7, the worst part of it, until my mother left him. And I was tortured and abused as a kid. And it caused significant issues that later I had to get help for, which would be 123 visits to a trauma specialist over a 9-month period. And I had to go into psychiatric care. I was been on Depakote, Depakine, Prozac, Zoloft, lithium, Buspar, a bunch of other things, and then a bunch of illegal stuff. So yeah, that was my formation and what I would call my imprinting as a child.
So how did you recover from something like that? I mean, that's a horrible situation that no child should be in. And obviously it wasn't of your choosing, just the circumstances. How do you recover from something like that?
Well, first, by changing your mindset. So anyone that's watching or listening, I'd say the first thing I had to really learn was the abuse was not my fault, and neither was the shame. It is on the perpetrator, because you go around with what I call lies based in reality. Lies are what will really mess a person up, that are placed in their mind. You know, for instance, there was a time he was dunking me in water and I passed out, and I woke up to him actually breathing to resuscitate me. I'm just a kid laying on a cold bathroom floor, and he said, "Boy, don't you ever forget that I'm the one that gives you life." So you see, he had this sense of power over me, that he controlled my life, which caused great fear. So knowing that you were not the problem, it was not your fault, and the shame was never yours, was the first step. And then, you know, healing's a journey when you start talking about psychological effects. It's not a one-shot deal and everything's better. And I would say I'm thankful for soul surgeons, Christians who understand how to help bring a fragmented soul back together through proper counseling. And I have a book that was written, the Victor Marx story, and I go in depth on all of this, but a very key component, and some people are not going to like to hear this, but it was forgiveness. Is me giving up my right to hurt someone back for hurting me. It's not separate of justice, and it certainly doesn't mean reconciliation, but it's absolutely a key part, because anger that comes from that, it can keep a person stuck forever.
Say that again. You gave up your right to be able to hurt somebody. In other words, you were justified if you were to hurt someone, but you relinquished that right. It's kind of like Joseph, you know, when he reveals himself to his brothers, and now he has power over them, and they did a horrible thing to him to put him in the pit, leaving him for dead, hoping that he would die because they were jealous of him. And then now he's elevated to the top leadership of Egypt, and he has the power, and he certainly has the reason to do his brothers harm. But he said, what you intended to do evil to me, God intended for good, and he forgave them at that point. That's essentially what I hear you saying, to give up your right to be able to hurt somebody and release that from you. Yes.
And Matt, that's Joseph's one of my heroes in the Bible, and that story, because of his life, and it does parallel, you know, and I had the opportunity. I faced my abuser, my stepfather, later in life, and I remember standing in front of him down by a little river. He lived in a little trailer, and I definitely had the power to hurt his feelings. You know, and I remember he's looking at me, and I'm not a kid anymore. I'm a full-grown man, and been in the United States Marines. At that point, I was a master of martial arts, and killing him would have been easy. and in so many people's eyes justified. But I didn't, and because I knew the Lord and God's grace came on me. And I would tell people, you know, even if you kill someone that you hate, it doesn't mean that you'll be over the unforgiveness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't realize that. But God used that, what I would say, his power in me to forgive this man. He faced natural consequences. He was in prison, and he died a very horrible death, health-wise. But God gave me the grace to let him know, hey, I forgive you, and I'm here as a representative of God to forgive you. It didn't minimize anything he did. I didn't say, oh, it's okay. Not at all. As a matter of fact, I told him, when you die, and it will be soon, you will spend eternity in hell, according to the Bible. So you got to make up your mind to turn toward God and his forgiveness, or reap an eternal consequence of your actions.
Wow. So that amazing, incredible background and your experience speaks to so many different levels of people that are hurt, whether they're sexually abused or other kinds of hurt that they have experienced. You know, little did you know that through all that tragedy that you were living, and it was clearly a tragedy, that God would birth something beautiful that he has a call for you to do. So for those people who are going through similar tragedies or any kind of tragedy, there's always hope. And you are a living example of that hope. And through your ministry, all things are possible. I love that name because you know, the word impossibility is really not in God's vocabulary. That's in our vocabulary. There's nothing impossible with God. Put another way, all things are possible with God. And that's what your ministry is about. Part of what you do in your ministry, tell us about some of the things, but I know that one of the things that you do is you try to track down pedophiles, and you also rescue women and children that are caught in sex trafficking and other kinds of situations. Tell us about some of those aspects of your ministry.
This type of aspect of ministry, I didn't plan to do. And honestly, with all of your constituents watching, most things that I'm doing, it really took God's loving push in my back to do, plus his servant, my wife, to be a physical embodiment of saying, go get it done. And yeah, I mean, just last night, I'm on a, encrypted communications about the opportunity to rescue a young woman who has 2 children. She had the children while in captivity, and she's still being held captive by a terrorist organization. And, no one will go get her. Where she's at, the level of risk, I can tell you for certainty that no one will attempt the rescue and recovery, because there's no value from her, by the U.S. military. She's not a U.S. citizen. She has an injured child who's handicapped. So, but the suffering that she's endured, I can tell you this, her family still wants her back, but they don't even know where she is. But our teams and our network found her. And just last night, I gave the thumbs up. We've been praying. I said, let's move forward with an operational plan by prepping, by prayer, by resources. And I said it because I did it on a post for prayer. I said, we will get her and the children by God's grace. So it hasn't stopped for us since the beginning. And we help, even people must understand, even after you recover someone that suffered trauma, it's not over. It continues. So helping people who've suffered trauma, because I know firsthand, That's a huge part of what we do. And we're well over 45,000 kids and women we've helped just with trauma. The rescuing, recovering, the facilitating things are different, but there's such a need just for trauma relief. In the last 60 days, within a 60-day period, I believe we were in Israel twice. Right after Hamas attack, we took a team in, and we've been finding the children and the families who survived the attack, and which it is the worst gruesome slaughter of human innocent people I've ever seen in my life. And I'll tell you, and I share with my wife and other people, I'll never wear the same boots again that I wore walking through so much blood and carnage of innocent children, mommies, elderly people who were slaughtered by Hamas. And so I really believe people need to understand there's nothing good about Hamas. And I'll just drop this on your audience, Matt. I believe it'd be prudent for all of your viewers and listeners to understand the level of risk here in the U.S. of something similar happening is extremely high. I would put it in an extremely high category. And I've been quoted by saying it's not if, but when. So I'd highly encourage people to be aware of, what's going on both in the political realm and geopolitics of these wars and attacks, but also our southern border being so porous and millions coming in. Because we've done work at the border. We've caught, my wife and I with team, we've caught men bringing children in to traffic them. And there's a bunch of evil going on, which instead of getting depressed or overwhelmed, it's just a great opportunity. I tell Christians, look, you can't back paddle or go into a hole like a crawfish. And I really think that's what Christians, that's the mindset they should have right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's so much that you said just now that we can unpack, because I think you're right. It's so true that we are at risk, significant risk of what's happening at the southern border. If you want to come into the United States, there's basically an open ticket for anybody in the world to just cross the southern border. And we know that there are some people that are associated with terrorist organizations who have been caught crossing the border. We also know that there are terrorists that have crossed the border and we don't know where they are. So I fully agree with you that we are at risk of having something very similar happen as to what happened on October 7. And we have a lot of friends in Israel, and I've seen so many videos and photography, snapshots of unbelievable carnage that you can't even begin to describe as what you're talking about. So thank you for your work there. I know there's obviously a lot of trauma, and even for those hostages that are still there underground, I can't imagine the kind of trauma, if they are able to ever see the light of day, and if they are rescued, the kind of trauma that they will deal with going forward. You have a lot of examples of rescues. So obviously you've done not only trauma counseling, which is huge, and you've done a lot of that, but you also are putting your lives at risk, you and others that are coming together. Obviously, when I said that you're hunting down pedophiles, I mean, it's one thing in the United States with the ICACs, the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force, where they lure pedophiles in and they arrest them. You're part of that as well to try to track those down. But you're talking about going into a terrorist area and actually helping to rescue someone who's been sexually, physically, emotionally abused, that's still in the clutches of radical terrorists.
Yes. We are operational, by the grace of God, and unbelievable team members in Southeast Asia, the Middle East. We're doing work south of the border, all the way down to Colombia. And we started a task force here in the U.S. We affectionately call it the Pedophile Hunters Task Force. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not being rude, folks, but we're operational, so I actually have to, my phone's here because I'm responding to some things going on right now. I have things going on in Israel, in Gaza, Southeast Asia, right now, in Iraq and Syria, and then here in the U.S. So we took time to visit with y'all, but I had to check that. And the U.S. is horrible. Each place offers a risk, right? And when a plane lands and we get out, there's risk. More recently, my wife and I, of all places, we flew into a certain country and rescued a gal who is a horrible situation by a pedophile. And she, it took us 3 days to get her out. We actually get wrapped up at the border trying to bring her back into the U.S., which blows my mind. You know, you got millions flowing in through our borders, and here we are trying to get in an undocumented young woman, teenager into the U.S. for help and recovery. We got wrapped up for 6 hours. 6 hours. Interviewed, interrogated, separated. And I'm like, guys, Google my name, Victor Marx. It will help push this. I understand you're doing your job. And after about 5 hours, I was starting to wear thin because the girl we had, I didn't know how much more she could take, right? Fragile and all this. And thank God my wife always prays and texts people to pray for us. And sure enough, their task force for human trafficking, sex trafficking, the leader came in. He walks into the room and he goes, "It's Victor Marx." And he looks at everybody else. He's like, "Are y'all kidding me?" And they're like, "Well, we saw that he had, but this looks like he's trafficking someone." He goes, because they're saying, why would he and his wife risk doing a rescue to get, and the guy goes, "You don't know them. I follow them. I love what they do. They're the real deal." So in America, the reason why it's so dangerous, and you hit it, and I just had our task force commander communicating with me in the U.S. People need to understand. Last year there was probably over 31 million sexual abuse images of children
Wow.
transferred in the U.S. Folks, don't tune me out. You just need to understand what I'm about to tell you and the gravity of it. With over 31 million images, videos being transferred, guess what? 85% of that is being done at work or through the works, IP address. So people who are looking at these images are regular folks. It's not the dirty old guy that's hunched over somewhere. The fastest growing use of child abuse material is by 20-something-year-olds.
Wow. And
people would say, how can that be? Well, they've been looking at porn since they were 8, 9, and 10.
Victor, you have a website. You have Victor Marx, MARX.com, victormarx.com, founder of All Things Possible. What would you like our viewers to take away in terms of what they can do? Obviously, send them to your website. And they can learn more about All Things Possible, but also support you financially, or perhaps learn more about what you do, maybe have you come and speak or have somebody else come and speak. How can they be involved? What would you give as a takeaway for our viewers?
Well, thank you. First, I would say this, and I say it with the most gentle humility. Christian people need to repent themselves. That the Bible is very clear that if we humble ourselves and turn from our wicked ways, then God will hear our prayers and he'll heal our land. I believe it starts with the church. There are many churches out there they're just high compromisers. So therefore, you can't fight evil while being stuck in evil. And the second thing is have hope that regardless of what's going on, you have the light, you have the truth, and be bold in that. Stand up for what's right. And 3, if you want to help us, be intentional about praying for us. I'm known for not asking for money much. I don't have heavy. We didn't even do, the only fundraiser we did last year was a dinner at someone's house. And yet the Lord has brought in millions of dollars for us to do our work by faithful people. People will respond if God puts it on their heart. But pray for us. Go to our website, victormarx.com. It's with an X, victormarx.com. Sign up for our email list. That way we'll have constant communication.
Well, Victor, thank you for being a guest on our program today, Freedom Alive. And thank you so much for being a shining example of what was intended for evil, God can turn around for good. And your history, your story is going to currently is echoing through history and through generations. Thank you. God bless for all your work and especially on all of your endeavors to rescue those who need help. God bless. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Matt, that was a gripping story. I'm reminded of the story that Jesus talks about where we are instructed to leave the 99 and go find the one. And I'm just astounded always at how God works. And Victor, really, he modeled it with Victor. He went and found the one.
Had you met Victor at a certain stage of his life, the natural tendency would be to write him off.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is some wild young man, and he's very belligerent. He's dangerous. There's no hope for him. And now you see he has this incredible ministry. I mean, I was just amazed at the story where his team are willing to go into a terrorist stronghold to rescue a woman that's there with her children. Unbelievable. And then he's getting all these text messages during the interview of different engagements that he has going on in different parts of the world.
Exactly.
It's amazing ministry.
Exactly. Not only does God find him, but he equips him, surrounds him with resources to go and find the one anywhere in the world. For those at home, I also appreciated what you said. Nothing is impossible with God. Nothing is impossible with God. Well, in closing, remember Galatians 5, verse 1, which says, "It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery." Our freedom is a gift from our Creator. We must never forget that and always protect it. So join us here next time where you'll hear victories as well as ways you can stand up for your priceless freedom. Join us again for Freedom Alive.